Good evening to all of you faithful viewers of Equinoxe Television. It's 6 p.m. in Douala and it's time for the news. We thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our major stars this evening. Horror in the nation's political capital Yaoundé as a woman in her 30s killed all her 3 children by poisoning and later died in the hospital. The lady repeatedly complained of her husband's infidelity and had been threatening to kill all the children if he continues, an act which she fructified after discovering her husband had cheated on her again for an umpteenth time. Our reporters are on standby for details on what really happened in Scorabison in Yaoundé in this edition of the news. And psychologists will also explain to us how possible it is for a sane human being to commit such a heinous crime. You will listen to them in this newscast. Plus, the media world is mourning the passing away of an icon, Eka. He died following a malaise in Côte d'Ivoire. That was yesterday. Viewers, those are our major stories. Details and more when we come back. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for always having confidence on Equinoxe Television. We told you a while ago that the media world in Cameroon and elsewhere is mourning the passing away of renowned media personality and icon Eka. The celebrated host and producer died. That was on Monday, February 16 in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, after reportedly suffering from a malaise. According to information gathered from sources in Abidjan, Eka was at his office earlier that day when he began experiencing severe symptoms and vomiting. He was rushed to the hospital where he gave up the ghost. The news of his death has prompted an outpouring of tributes across the media landscape and beyond. Innocent Asser with more.
Nous parlons dans ce programme de l'Afrique et surtout nous donnons des informations vraies et précises. Je suis Eka.
Kofi Olomide, il a vaincu l'Olympia.
As for Kofi Olomide, Eka marries all the shared souvenirs, laughter and beautiful moments shared together. Kofi did not hesitate to share some of his concert videos presented by Eka. Grace Deka, on her part, considers the death of Eka as one of those departures that inspires the new generation. His charisma and talent, she says, will forever remain indelible in the memory as a distinct lesson. In lamentation, Chantal Ayisi presents Eka as a father. From 1991 till date, she reveals that she is the fruit of his work. Also granting homage to Eka is Cameroonian writer Kalicht Beyala. She writes, "He was an exceptional kindness, of a boundless gentleness, of a breathtaking professionalism. He was my brother. I was entitled to a sisterful tenderness. He left us today, and my heart is bleeding. Rest in peace, my brother. We will never forget you." The first time I was paid several millions of francs CFA in Cameroon for a show, it was thanks to him. Rest in peace, great man. Thank you for everything, wrote Marol Chamba as she pays homage to Eka. According to Adela Bikim, the death of Eka is a departure that is heavy in the hearts of those who knew and loved him. Eka leaves an enormous vacuum in many hearts, as it is mentioned by Ruth Koto in her post as she pays homage to the audiovisual figure.
On va lever les mains. Voilà, l'Afrique.
Sad indeed, may his soul rest in peace. Let's now talk about the death of this 7-year-old athlete in Douala. During a competition, he was hit by an amateur driver who was on a steering wheel and he died on the spot. And authorized driving school operators in Douala now are calling on the Ministry of Transport to carry out a crackdown on clandestine operators in the city. The call is coming at a time the alleged amateur driver accidentally hit young Yohan, who was participating in a roller skating competition that was over the weekend. And about 24 hours after that incident, our reporter Majikan Gabriel visited the incident scene where he spoke with some teammates of Yohan and a driving school operator. His report.
Traces are still very visible at the scene just behind the reunification stadium of Bepanda in Douala, where little Kandem Yolan of New Stars Athletics Rollers Club from Japoma was crushed to death by a car during our visit to the scene. A teammate to Yolan explained to us what transpired. The Federation came to test our capacities, and we started on Saturday to conclude on Sunday. As we began warming up that Sunday, we suddenly saw a car coming to the same direction that the Federation had already hired. We instead noticed the driver accelerated. He missed taking me and a little girl down before he finally knocked that my friend. The zone, which is used by driving schools to train learners, hasn't been shut down after the incident as activities continue undisturbed. One of the trainers we met said the incident which happened was a regrettable one. It was a very bad thing which pushes us to reflect on being responsible. We are faced with a reality which is very disappointing, that of clandestine users. Those who just leave their neighborhood and jump in to do this work without being aware of the rules and regulations of the profession. But he believes the blame is to be shared. We both take the blame. First, the organizing committee had the responsibility of making sure that the used zone for the competition is safe and stop any vehicle from using the track for the tournament. And also, the person who committed the act has to be treated with some fairness, but there are many clandestine users. The trainer further calls on more vigilance at the zone, since apart from having unprofessional persons coming to use the area to teach others driving, the life of young people around is also important. Security has to be here permanently, because by the side we have primary school pupils who loiter around. You can never hear that a professional will allow such to happen. After Kandem Yolan was murdered brutally on Sunday, his killer has been kept behind bars at the Gendarmerie Brigade in Bepanda, but inhabitants of Entre Bepanda are calling on authorities to ensure that only qualified driving schools use the space.
And now in religion, Christians are preparing to begin the period of Lent for 40 days as they prepare for Easter. That would be the period of Lent begins tomorrow. That would be on Ash Wednesday. During the period of Lent, Christians are called upon to pray, fast, do penance, and also almsgiving. Our reporter Cedric Chakucho spoke with some Christians and also a priest he met at the St. Peter and Paul's Cathedral in Douala today.
Prayers and moments of reflection followed the midday mass at St. Peter's and Paul Cathedral in Douala. On the eve of the Lenten season, many faithful came to prepare themselves spiritually for this important time in the Christian calendar. At the beginning of the Lenten season, we ask the Lord to give us great strength, because in Cameroon we face a lot of difficulties. Starting on Wednesday, February 18th, Christians will enter into 40 days of penance and conversion in remembrance of Jesus' fasting in the desert. After the celebration presided over by Father Gabriel Lissouk II, faithful expressed their readiness to fully embrace this period. This is the greatest period where our Lord asks of us care for the poor. Even if we do not eat, we must give the little we have to the poor and those who do not have. I must confirm myself to the life of Christ during these 40 days, so that, having died and risen again, I too may die in sin and rise again with Him. I observe a dry fast without drinking water. This is how I fast in the Muslim style. A personal commitment, but also a communal one, which the Church guides with specific recommendations. The name of Lenten comes from the Greek word quadra, which means 40. It is therefore a 40-day period during which Christians prepare to celebrate Easter. During the Lenten season, the Church asks us to abstain from meat on Good Friday, but we don't stop at depriving ourselves of food. We can deprive ourselves of leisure, we can deprive ourselves of negative thoughts, and so on. The Lenten season is truly a time of conversion.
d'être une bonne personne, de nous approcher sur le chemin de la perfection, comme le Seigneur Jésus-Christ nous le recommande.
According to Father Gabriel Lissouk II, the Lenten season focuses on 3 essential pillars: fasting, almsgiving, and prayer.
Les 3 piliers de carême sont liés. Le jeûne, on jeûne, on se prive de quelque chose, et ce avec quoi on s'est privé, on l'utilise pour aider les pauvres. On jeûne, on se prive et on a assez de temps pour prier.
These 40 days are a time of sharing, penance, and prayer. Therefore, Christians are urged to live piously.
And Muslims are also preparing to begin fasting for the period of the Ramadan anytime from now. In Marwa, the Muslims have been advised on how to go about their fasting period. And the Ministry of Trade organizes sporadic market.
The prices to enable greater number of consumers to afford them. This market is very important for the inhabitants in accordance to the upcoming event, which is the period of Ramadan. It's under the high instruction of the head of state that will organize this market in preparation of every important event like the end of year festivity and school resumption. While this operation is a welcome breath for a fresh air, the message from the population remains clear. Families are still looking towards the state to maintain pressure on traders in the regular markets, calling for a permanent revision of prices and a combat for the high cost of living that plagues the region. In the town of Marwa, we notice that life is so difficult, but today, with this promotion, we are able to buy and make provisions for a good number of time. A moment of solidarity in Marwa as the community prepares for a month of prayer and sacrifice. The Ministry of Trade has assured that supplies will remain available to satisfy the high demand on the eve of this sacred month.
And now let's take you to Yaoundé to talk about this very sad incident which happened precisely in Kor-Bison, the horror in the nation's political capital, where a woman in her 30s, we told you in the headlines, killed all her 3 children by poisoning and later died in the hospital. The lady, our reporters on the field told us, according to neighbors who had repeatedly complained of her husband's infidelity and had been threatening to kill all the children if he continues cheating on her, an act which the said lady later fructified after discovering her husband had cheated on her again for an umpteenth time. Reporters in Yaoundé who are on the field told us that the incident has been blamed somehow on neglect on the part of the family, and the lady, after poisoning the children who were told, finally was rushed to the hospital where she herself gave up the ghost, and her husband is still alive. Investigations have been opened in Kor-Bison, that is in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé. And now there is this question: why would a woman kill her own children? What can trigger such a violent action? We put these questions to a psychologist after the Kor-Bison incident, where a woman is reported to have killed her children, before taking her own life over marital tensions with her husband. We also sought to know from the clinical psychologist how such incidents can be prevented. Babila Jonathan attempted answer to those questions with a clinical psychologist.
Disappointment, depression, and suicide. This is the pattern identified by psychologists as the path leading to tragedies like what happened in Kor-Bison on the outskirts of Cameroon's political capital Yaoundé, where a woman is said to have killed her 3 children before committing suicide. Matrimonial dispute reportedly triggered the incident.
When people get together for a relationship and each of them comes in with some values, and invest maybe financially, maybe emotionally, those investments are things that they think can help the relationship to stay, to last for long. But if at a certain time they realize that one of the spouses are trying to leave the relationship, it can lead to depression when maybe the person who is losing the spouse feel that she's now left alone. It can bring depression, and depression always goes along with suicidal thoughts.
To prevent such incidents, consulting a mental health professional is recommended by medics.
It is extremely important when family members like brothers and sisters or friends, they see that their person is not really doing fine. Instead of just staying or bringing some advice that may not be appropriate, it's good to recommend that the person should consult a mental health professional. And this is extremely important because we may avoid what happened for this lady.
Clinical psychologist Prof. emphasizes the point that early consultation can save lives.
And now, before we go, viewers, this communique just getting to us following the persistent dispute on the structure which is to be in charge of scanning, or the scanning department at the Douala Port Authority. The director of the port, Cyrus Ngor, has sent out another communique, which is the most recent signed yesterday, which seems to be a permanent or a concrete solution. As at now, Cyrus Ngor has called on Transatlantic to temporarily suspend activities at the port while they look for a permanent or final solution to the conflict which has been going on between the Minister for Finance, the Prime Minister, and the SGS and Transatlantic concerning which structure should be in charge of scanning at the ports of Douala. And we will be talking more on that in the second part of the news, viewers. That does it for the first part of the news. Don't go away. Talking Points comes up next. Welcome back, viewers. Thank you for being here. Our guest tonight is a civil society actor, Professor Mark Anthony AKUHMBOM. Thank you so much, sir, for always opening your doors to us whenever we knock. Now we are coming back to the crisis which has been happening concerning which structure is to control the scanning department at the Douala Port Authority. Now the crisis at the ports continues to escalate until today, when the director, Cyrus Ngor, has signed a communique asking Transatlantic to temporarily suspend its activities at the port. Now, it looks like there is somehow light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. But we have seen a series of communique from the ports director to the Minister of Finance. Don't you think that conflict had already been pulling for so long already, Professor?
Good evening, Anna Bila, and thank you for receiving me. You see, I am one of those Cameroonians who believe that from every indication, we are lacking something, leadership in the country. Why do I say so? When we look at the crisis at the Port Autonome de Douala, what we call the Autonomous Port of Douala, we have this conviction and belief that there's a problem somewhere which has a higher hand working along with, because I do not see how Cyrus Ngor, who is the director of the Port Authority, is at loggerheads with the government, they say. When you look at the exchanges of letters between the Ministry of Finance and the Port Authority, then not to talk of the letter that was written by the Prime Minister to the Director of the Port Authority, and you still see the acts and the reaction of the Port Authority Director, you get to feel like this country is having a lack of leadership, and you see direct disrespect of authority. You get to start asking questions. What is happening? What is happening? Who is doing what, and who is at the helm of issues? I think that like the Prime Minister rightly said, the contract between SGS and the Cameroon government was signed for the sake of the scanning of containers and goods that are entering the country and those going out. But and that particular law also extends, the particular contract extends to 2032. I also think that the Port Authority has a right to try to execute the law, but there is a way to go about all this without creating conflict. And that is where there is an issue. We have a problem with understanding. There is insubordination indirectly expressed in all this. So the question is, how do we come out of it? Because in reality, it has overdue. It has overdue.
Prof, let's hope the temporary suspension of activities of Transatlantic is going to be a permanent solution. But we know earlier that the Minister of Finance had to insist that the Prime Minister's decision for SGS to be reinstated must be respected. But Professor Mark Anthony, the Prime Minister is the highest authority after the head of state in the executive power. But why did it seem like it was very hard for his decision to be respected to the latter?
You see, the reason why I said there is insubordination is because I also think that even if the director of the Port Authority acted on the law, which is supposed to be what is supposed to be respected, the law, there was a degree of impunity when it comes to his actions. Why do I say so? There is a direct contract that the government signs with the SGS, which is a scanning company. There is a law also that the government, also the president, signed into operation that was 2018, but this contract was signed in 2015. This law supersedes the contract. That's true. Why? Because it covers whatsoever is supposed to be happening from the year 2019, which was supposed to be the year from which the Port Authority was supposed to be reorganized. Yes. But the Prime Minister, who is the head of government, when it comes to the government of Cameroon, he is the first. He is the head of the government. The president is the head of state, as he's called, which implies the projects of the head of state are handed over to the Prime Minister for execution. But should that be against the law? No. So there is a problem. Like I said, Cyrus Ngo acted in impunity. The Minister of Finance acting in impunity. The Prime Minister, all of them are having faults. But this is where there is supposed to be a sit down to discuss and handle things rather than expose the weakness of the government like they are doing. They have openly demonstrated to Cameroonians that the government is weak and cannot handle issues in this nation. And that is why the nation is the way it is. That is why the nation is the way it is. And so I think that this is the right time for the president himself to react. It has overdue. The president needs to react sincerely. But as it is, we can see that the president is not there. So,
Professor Mark Anthony, we also saw the Minister of Finance using some words which look like warnings on the director of the Ports Authority. That ping pong, as we could call it then, was what really could have been the objective. Don't you think it was more than what meets the eyes, Prof?
When you read through the communique or the letter, the response of the Minister of Finance to the letter written by the Director of the Port Authority, Cyrus, you get to feel like Motase is having a particular issue. But that is because he feels like his subordinate has disrespected him. And that's proof of insubordination. And for the fact that he has been insubordinated, his word seems hard and like threats. But it's funny how even after that, the director has not budged. That should tell you there's something that we have not yet understood. He hasn't budged. This comes back to actually relate an issue that happened the past year, where the Minister of Sports said something and the president of FECAFOOD reacted, did his own thing, and held to his position because he said he was acting by the law. As Caesar was also saying, he's acting by the law. And so anything that they say should be done according to the law, not against the law. That is a strong point. That is a very strong point. We consider it to be insubordination because in Africa, we kind of look up to authority and at times even against the law. But I think the law is supposed to have its place. We are supposed to respect the law. If we make laws, these laws are supposed to be respected. So I don't think that the Minister of Finance should use harsh words or speak as if he is a commander. He's a servant, and he's supposed to be a higher servant than the port authority because he is the minister. The word minister means a servant. I don't know if they know it. And anybody who has been appointed by the president is acting under a mandate which has been given to the president by the people. So the people of Cameroon are the employers of these guys. So they should understand this and know that when they have the audacity, the opportunity to sit in offices, they should use it as servants, not as bosses. None of them should act the way they are acting. I don't think writing to the port authority with so much vigor is going to actually make things change. So he needs to revisit his words and call a meeting to sit down and talk with this guy.
Like we have been mentioning, Prof, let's just hope that the fact that the activities of Transatlantic have been suspended for now should be somehow a permanent solution. We are hoping. Now, if you were to make a proposal on how or who should say stop, like put a definite stop to all of this public show of dishonor to our institutions, what would that proposal be, Professor Mark Anthony?
You see, like I mentioned earlier, if we have to look at the hierarchy of authority, the Prime Minister, who is supposed to be the head of the government and an authority, had spoken, and still we haven't seen any change. I think the Port Authority have not respected the voice of the leaders, the government, or say the Prime Minister, because he thinks he is on the right path. He's walking by the law. And that is a strong point to hold on to. And I even think that if the president, who is the head of state, speaks, it might still not change any position because he is the one who signed that law saying that the nation should, the Port Authority should be reorganized and become autonomous, meaning that they have the right to take decisions for themselves because it's a public company and they are autonomous. That gives them the authority to finance, not only finance their projects, but to sign contracts for themselves. And so I think with that authority, he might even defy the president. But for the fact that he does not have the instruments needed to go against the president. So I think the last hope for this problem to be solved is the president. If the president himself speaks I think that there will be submission. At the moment, it seems as if there is a game that is happening, a power tussle, which is happening, and Go is just a peon, in this particular game. I mean, Go Cyrus is just a peon. He's acting based on someone's authority, not based on his authority, if you look at it clearly. So we expect that at this moment, let the president speak out. The president is the only solution to this problem as of now. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you to Prof. As we speak now, or for the moment, like you mentioned, the Prime Minister's decision is somehow being respected as the activities of Transatlantic have been temporarily suspended at the ports per the communique, the most recent of Cyrus Ngo, who is a director of the Douala Autonomous Ports. And viewers, that does it for this edition of the news. Thank you so much for being with us.